Welcome back, everyone. Today, we are going to look up at the night sky not through telescopes or satellites, but through the eyes of ancient people. Long before modern science, long before clocks and calendars, humans were already paying close attention to the stars. And what they understood might surprise you. For ancient civilizations, the stars were not distant lights floating in empty space. They were practical, meaningful, and deeply connected to everyday life. The sky was not something to admire occasionally, it was something to depend on. Ancient people saw the stars as tools, guides, and markers that helped them survive in an unpredictable world. Without written calendars, people learned to read the movement of the stars to understand time. The rising and setting of certain star groups signaled changes in weather, seasons, and natural cycles. These patterns told communities when to plant crops, when to prepare for colder months, and when important events were approaching. In many places, this knowledge was shared through stories and traditions, allowing it to pass from one generation to the next. The stars also offered a sense of order. In a world without artificial light, the night sky was clear, bright, and reliable. While life on Earth could feel chaotic, the movement of the stars followed steady patterns that people learned to trust. This created a deep connection between human life and the cosmos above. Today, we often think of ancient star knowledge as symbolic or mythical. But in reality, it was practical, observational, and rooted in experience. Ancient people did not study the stars out of curiosity alone, they relied on them. And as we continue this story, we will explore how much of that sky-based wisdom slowly faded as technology changed the way we measure time and understand the universe. Long before mechanical clocks or printed calendars existed, ancient people relied on the sky itself to measure time. The movement of the stars provided a natural system that was remarkably accurate and consistent. By carefully observing when certain stars appeared or disappeared on the horizon, early civilizations could track the passing of days, seasons, and even years. One of the most important concepts was the predictable cycle of star risings. Certain stars would rise just before sunrise at the same time each year. These moments were not random, they marked critical changes in the environment. In ancient Egypt, the first appearance of a bright star signaled the coming flood season, allowing farmers to prepare their fields in advance. Missing this timing could mean crop failure, so watching the sky was a matter of survival. Across different parts of the world, similar systems developed independently. Farming communities learned that the stars returned to the same positions with steady reliability. This allowed them to plan planting, harvesting, migrations, and ceremonies without written records. The sky became a shared reference point that everyone could observe, regardless of language or location. What makes this knowledge especially impressive is its precision. Without modern instruments, ancient observers identified long-term patterns by repeating observations year after year. Small changes were noticed, remembered, and passed down through oral traditions. Over generations, this created a collective memory of the sky that functioned as a living calendar. In contrast, modern society rarely looks upward to understand time. Digital tools now separate us from natural cycles, making the sky feel distant and unnecessary. Yet for ancient people, time was not counted, it was watched. The stars were not abstract symbols but dependable markers that shaped daily life. This deep connection between sky and time formed the foundation of early civilization and quietly guided humanity long before written history began. Across the ancient world, people did more than observe the sky, they built it into stone. Long before modern astronomy, massive structures were carefully positioned to align with the movements of the sun, moon, and stars. These alignments were not accidental. They required long-term observation, planning, and a deep understanding of celestial cycles. Stone circles, temples, pyramids, and ceremonial sites around the world reveal a shared pattern. Many are aligned with solstices and equinoxes. On specific days of the year, sunlight or shadows pass through narrow corridors, doorways, or standing stones with remarkable accuracy. These moments marked important transitions in the annual cycle, such as the longest day, the shortest night, or the return of longer daylight. What makes this especially striking is the scale and precision involved. Without modern tools, ancient builders had to track the sky over many years to identify stable patterns. They then translated that knowledge into architecture that could preserve it for generations. Stone became a way to lock time and sky together, creating a permanent record of celestial understanding. These structures also served as gathering points. When the light aligned perfectly, communities came together to observe, remember, and reinforce shared knowledge. The sky was no longer something abstract, it was experienced physically, through light, shadow, and space. This turned astronomy into a collective event rather than a private activity. Today, many of these monuments still work exactly as intended. Thousands of years later, sunlight continues to strike the same stones on the same days. This durability proves that ancient people were not guessing. They were measuring, testing, and refining their observations. Modern society often separates science from culture. Ancient civilizations did the opposite. They embedded the sky into their landscapes, ensuring that cosmic cycles were never forgotten. These monuments stand as quiet evidence that early humans understood the heavens deeply enough to build their knowledge into the earth itself. For ancient travelers, the stars were more than lights in the sky, they were reliable guides across land and sea. Long before compasses or modern maps, people learned to move through the world by memorizing the patterns and paths of the night sky. This knowledge allowed journeys that would otherwise seem impossible. At sea, where landmarks disappear, star navigation became essential. Sailors learned which stars rose and set in specific directions and how their positions changed throughout the night. By following these movements, they could maintain a steady course over vast distances. This skill required intense training, careful memory, and constant awareness of the sky above. On land, stars also played a crucial role. Desert travelers and traders crossing open plains used familiar star patterns to keep direction during long night journeys. The sky provided consistency when the ground offered none. Even when weather or terrain became confusing, the stars remained dependable reference points. What makes this form of navigation remarkable is that it was often passed down without written instructions. Knowledge was preserved through stories, songs, and repeated practice. Young navigators learned the sky the way others learn a language, by immersion and experience. Over time, this created experts who could read subtle changes in star positions with ease. In the modern world, navigation is automated. Devices calculate routes instantly, and most people no longer need to understand direction in a physical sense. As a result, star navigation has faded into a specialized skill rather than a shared one. Ancient people trusted the sky because it earned that trust through consistency. The stars rose, moved, and set in predictable ways, night after night. By learning those patterns, humans expanded their reach across oceans and continents, guided not by instruments, but by the quiet order of the heavens. Ancient people did not see the night sky as a random collection of stars. Instead, they recognized patterns and connected them into stories that carried meaning far beyond entertainment. These stories helped explain the world, preserve knowledge, and strengthen cultural identity. The sky became a shared memory written in light. Different cultures saw different images in the same stars. What one society imagined as an animal, another saw as a tool, a hero, or a journey. These variations show that ancient astronomy was not only about observation, but also about interpretation. The stars acted as a canvas onto which people projected their understanding of life, nature, and time. These stories often served practical purposes. By linking important lessons or seasonal changes to star patterns, communities made complex information easier to remember. When a familiar group of stars appeared in the sky, it reminded people of upcoming events, responsibilities, or traditions. Storytelling turned the sky into a guide that could be understood by all ages. In some cultures, the most important shapes were not made by stars themselves, but by the dark spaces between them. The Milky Way, filled with light and shadow, became a landscape of symbols. This shows a deep level of sky awareness, where absence and contrast were just as meaningful as brightness. Modern science separates myth from measurement, but ancient cultures blended them. Their stories did not replace observation. They preserved it. Through narrative, star knowledge survived across generations without books or instruments. Today, many of these sky stories are fading. Light-filled cities and busy lives leave little room for long nights of observation. Yet these ancient interpretations remind us that the stars once connected people not only to the universe, but to each other, giving shared meaning to the vast darkness above. Ancient sky watchers were not only focused on nightly movements. They also paid attention to changes that unfolded over many generations. While most people today think of the stars as fixed and unchanging, ancient observers noticed that the skies slowly shifted over time. This awareness required patience, memory, and knowledge passed down carefully across centuries. One of the most subtle changes they tracked was the slow shift in the position of the stars across the seasons. Certain star alignments that once marked important times of the year gradually drifted. Ancient cultures did not always explain this change mathematically, but they noticed it. Some adjusted their calendars, ceremonies, or building alignments to match the new sky. This long-term awareness appears preserved in myths and traditions. Stories of ages ending, skies changing, or cosmic cycles repeating may reflect real observations of gradual celestial motion. These narratives acted as containers for complex ideas that could survive even when exact measurements were forgotten. Evidence of this deep observation can also be found in ancient structures. Some temples and ceremonial sites were modified or rebuilt over time, suggesting that builders recognized shifts in celestial alignment and responded to them. This implies a continuity of sky knowledge rather than a single moment of discovery. What makes this remarkable is that all of this was achieved without modern instruments. There were no telescopes, no precise clocks, and no written equations. Instead, knowledge was built through repetition, comparison, and collective memory. Small differences were noticed because the sky was observed every night, year after year. In modern times, we rely on recorded data and technology to track slow changes. Ancient people relied on experience and inheritance of knowledge. Their understanding reminds us that careful observation over long periods can reveal truths that are invisible in the short term. The sky was not just watched, it was remembered. Ancient people understood that the sky was not perfectly still. While many assume early civilizations believed the heavens never changed, historical records suggest the opposite. Careful observers noticed unexpected events and treated them as important moments worthy of attention and memory. Bright new lights appearing in the sky were recorded and discussed. These rare events stood out against familiar star patterns and could not be ignored. Their sudden presence challenged the idea of a fixed sky and reinforced the belief that the heavens were active rather than frozen in time. Even without modern explanations, ancient observers recognized that something unusual was happening. Planets were another clear sign of change. Unlike stars, these bright points moved across the sky over time. Their wandering paths were tracked and predicted, forming early systems of observation that required patience and consistency. This ability to distinguish between steady stars and moving lights shows a surprisingly advanced level of sky awareness. Eclipses were also carefully watched. The ability to anticipate these events demonstrates that ancient people recognized repeating cycles in celestial motion. Such moments were powerful reminders that the sky followed rules, even when those rules were not fully understood. What matters most is not how ancient people explained these changes, but that they noticed them at all. Recognition comes before theory. Observation comes before equations. By paying close attention, early skywatchers built the foundations of astronomy long before it became a formal science. Today, advanced instruments track changes far beyond what the human eye can see. Yet the habit of careful watching has faded for many people. Ancient cultures remind us that the first step toward understanding the universe is simply noticing when the sky does something different. One of the most impressive aspects of ancient star knowledge is how it survived without books, charts, or formal schools. Long before writing systems became common, information about the sky was preserved through memory, repetition, and shared experience. This required a level of discipline and accuracy that is often underestimated today. Star knowledge was usually passed from elders to younger members of the community through stories, rituals, and guided observation. Children learned the sky by watching it night after night, listening to explanations, and slowly recognizing patterns for themselves. This process did not rely on memorization alone, it relied on understanding. If someone truly understood the sky, they could notice when something was out of place. Songs and oral traditions played a key role. Rhythm and repetition made complex information easier to remember. The timing of star movements, seasonal changes, and navigation routes could all be encoded in narrative form. In this way, important details were protected from being lost, even when generations passed without written records. Because this knowledge was shared collectively, it was also self-correcting. If one person made a mistake, others who knew the sky could recognize it. Over time, this created a reliable system built on community observation rather than individual authority. The sky itself was the reference. In modern society, information is often stored externally in books, databases, and devices. While this allows precision and speed, it also reduces the need for personal familiarity. Ancient people carried the sky in their minds. Their knowledge was portable, flexible, and deeply rooted in lived experience. This generational approach created a strong connection between people and the cosmos. Learning the stars was not a separate subject, it was part of growing up. The loss of this tradition is not just a loss of information, but a loss of a way of relating to the world above us. For ancient people, the sky was not something distant or abstract. It was woven directly into daily routines, decisions, and beliefs. The movement of the stars influenced when people worked, rested, traveled, and gathered. Looking upward was not a special activity, it was simply part of living. Nightfall did not end productivity. It changed it. Under clear, dark skies, people could recognize familiar star patterns as easily as landmarks on the ground. These patterns helped them judge the passing of time during the night and orient themselves without artificial light. The sky functioned as a natural extension of the landscape. Seasonal changes in the stars also shaped social life. Certain star appearances marked times for festivals, community meetings, or important transitions. These moments created a rhythm that connected individuals to something larger than themselves. The sky offered a shared schedule that everyone could follow, regardless of status or role. This constant interaction built a quiet sense of awareness. People noticed when the sky looked different, when a star appeared earlier or later than expected, or when familiar patterns shifted. These observations were not written down, but they were remembered and discussed. The sky became a topic of everyday conversation, not a distant scientific subject. In contrast, modern life often separates people from natural cycles. Artificial lighting hides the stars, and schedules are set by numbers rather than observation. Time feels abstract, measured by devices instead of experience. As a result, the sky has lost its role in daily awareness. Ancient people lived within a visible universe. The stars reminded them of cycles, limits, and continuity. By making the sky part of ordinary life, they maintained a constant relationship with it. This closeness did not require advanced tools, only attention. And it shaped how humanity understood its place in the world long before modern explanations existed. As tools and technology advanced, humanity gained new ways to measure time, map space, and understand the universe. Yet this progress came with an unintended cost. Slowly, the direct relationship between people and the sky began to fade. Knowledge that once lived in observation and memory was replaced by devices and calculations. Mechanical clocks removed the need to watch the stars to understand time. Calendars fixed dates on paper, no longer requiring seasonal sky markers. Later, artificial lighting erased the night sky from daily view, especially in growing cities. When the stars became harder to see, they also became easier to ignore. This shift changed how knowledge was valued. Ancient sky wisdom was practical and shared by entire communities. Modern knowledge became specialized, stored in books, laboratories, and institutions. While this allowed incredible discoveries, it also meant that most people no longer needed to understand the sky personally. Astronomy became something studied by experts, not lived by everyone. Over time, stories connected to the stars began to lose relevance. Without regular observation, their meaning weakened. Constellations turned into diagrams rather than familiar companions in the night. The sky became distant, something to study occasionally, rather than something to rely on. What was lost was not intelligence or curiosity, but intimacy. Ancient people trusted the sky because they knew it well. They noticed small changes, subtle patterns, and long cycles because they had no choice but to pay attention. Modern society rarely needs that level of awareness. Today, we can calculate the movement of galaxies but struggle to recognize the stars above our own homes. This contrast highlights an important truth. Progress does not erase the past, but it can overshadow it. Understanding what was lost helps us see ancient knowledge not as outdated, but as a different way of knowing, one built on presence, patience, and direct connection with the sky. In recent years, interest in ancient star knowledge has begun to return. Researchers, historians, and indigenous communities are revisiting old traditions to better understand how early humans interacted with the sky. This renewed attention is not about rejecting modern science, but about complementing it with perspectives shaped by long-term observation and lived experience. Some modern astronomers now work alongside cultural experts to interpret ancient structures and star lore more accurately. By combining precise measurements with traditional knowledge, they uncover layers of understanding that were previously overlooked. Alignments, stories, and rituals once dismissed as symbolic are being recognized as practical systems rooted in careful observation. There is also a growing movement to reconnect with the night sky on a personal level. Star navigation workshops, dark sky preserves, and community stargazing events encourage people to experience the sky directly again. These experiences reveal how quickly familiarity can return when observation becomes a habit. Technology, ironically, is helping this revival. Digital simulations allow us to recreate ancient skies, showing how the stars appeared thousands of years ago. This makes it possible to understand why certain stars mattered and how knowledge developed over long periods. Modern tools are being used not to replace ancient wisdom, but to listen to it more closely. What becomes clear is that ancient people were not simply guessing or imagining meaning. They were building knowledge systems suited to their environment and needs. Their methods were different, but their attention was intense and disciplined. Rediscovering this perspective does not require abandoning modern understanding. It requires balance. By remembering how closely earlier civilizations watched the sky, we gain insight into a slower, deeper form of knowledge. In doing so, we reconnect with a tradition that once helped humanity find its place beneath the stars. The greatest difference between ancient people and modern society is not intelligence or curiosity, but attention. Ancient civilizations lived under dark skies and had no choice but to look up. The stars were visible every night, demanding awareness and inviting familiarity. Over time, this created a natural relationship between humans and the cosmos. Today, the sky is often hidden. Artificial light dims the stars. Busy schedules limit observation, and screens replace direct experience. As a result, the night sky feels distant, even though it is still there. We understand the universe in numbers and images, but rarely through personal observation. Ancient knowledge reminds us that understanding begins with presence. Before theories, before measurements, there was watching. People noticed patterns because they spent time with them. They recognized changes because they remembered what came before. This kind of awareness does not require advanced tools, it requires patience and curiosity. Looking up again does not mean returning to the past or rejecting modern science. It means restoring a balance between calculation and experience. When people take time to observe the sky, even briefly, familiar patterns begin to emerge. The stars stop feeling random and start feeling connected. This shift also changes perspective. The sky reminds us of cycles larger than daily routines and timelines longer than individual lives. Ancient people understood this intuitively. Their stories, calendars, and structures all reflected a sense of belonging within a vast and ordered universe. In a world that moves quickly, the sky offers stillness. It invites reflection without demanding answers. By remembering how earlier civilizations related to the stars, we regain something subtle but powerful, a sense of place. The knowledge was never completely lost. It simply became quiet. And every time someone steps outside, looks up, and truly notices the night sky, that ancient connection begins to return. As we have seen, ancient people did not look at the stars out of curiosity alone. They depended on them, learned from them, and built their lives around their steady patterns. The sky was their calendar, their guide, their memory, and their source of meaning. Over time, technology changed how we understand the universe, but it also quietly pulled us away from this direct relationship with the night sky. What ancient knowledge reminds us is simple yet powerful. Understanding begins with attention. Before formulas and instruments, there was careful watching. Before written records, there was shared memory. The stars helped humanity find order in an uncertain world, and that connection shaped civilizations in ways we are still uncovering today. By revisiting how ancient people understood the sky, we do not lose modern science, we enrich it. We gain perspective, patience, and a deeper sense of place in the universe. The stars are still there, following the same paths they always have. All that is left is for us to remember how to look up and truly see them again. Thank you for watching and spending this time exploring the past with us. If you enjoyed this journey through ancient knowledge and cosmic history, do not forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that challenge what we think we know. Until next time, clear skies, and see you in the next video.